Good morning, dear friends. Nice to see you all back again. I hope you had a nice night's sleep and you're raring to go for the sessions today. We start our first session in a few minutes from now, and we are privileged and honored to have Mr. Sanjeev Sarin, retired MD and CEO of Tata Coffee Limited, who talk to us for the next 1 hour. And the topic for the day is a very exciting topic, the future of employment and careers. I think all of us have been eagerly waiting to hear from people from the industry to understand how this whole game is shaping up and what's going to be the future opportunities from both the perspective of careers and employment. And who better than Mr. Sanjeev to talk to you through this. To introduce Mr. Sanjeev, Mr. Saran joined the Tata Group in 2008 as the Executive Director, Business Development in Tata Coffee. I'm sure all of you will have sipped the great Tata Coffee that he launched and he was behind to promote. He went on to become the Regional President, South Asia for the Tata Global Beverages Group, and then became MD and CEO in 2015. He joined the group after a large stint at Cadbury's, where he was placed in the Philippines as the country director. And he has extensive experience in sales, in strategy, in marketing, in general management, both in India and global markets. He's been a member of the National Tea Board, member of the CII, FMCG committee, and an executive committee member of UPASI. He did his master's in management from the Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines, and he graduated with a distinction and a master's in economics from Bombay University, where he was on top of the class and was awarded the university gold medal. Creating ethical, people-driven organizations has been a focus of Mr. Saran, and he continues to explore a spiritual path to leadership and coaching and mentoring people, which is very close to his heart. He has the honor of receiving the Alumni Achievement Award from the Asian Institute of Management for Lifetime Achievement. So let us welcome from our hearts, none other than the great Sanjeev Saran. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you so much. Well, let me start by saying it's fascinating to be here. In a space, we were talking about the future of employment, but I don't see anybody in front of me. So, so that is what today's world is all about in the technological world, but I think it's a fascinating initiative. Yeah, and thank you for this warm introduction, Sunil. Let me get and open my screen.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can. Please go on.
Okay, great. Fine. So the topic is clear, as has been mentioned by Sunil, and I think the future of employment and career. And it's interesting that a retired person is talking about the future in employment and careers. Okay, so but it's a good space to be, because where I am right now, I get a bird's eye view of what's happening, and along with all the experiences that have been gathered over the last 40 odd years of working. So I'm going to put that together and maybe speak for about 30, 35 minutes, somewhere around that, and then I'll throw it open to any question and answers. Hopefully I could answer those questions. If I can't, I'll just apologize and say, maybe we can reach out another time. Okay, so let us start. One minute. Seems to have got stuck. 1 minute. Okay.
That's fine.
There we are. Okay. So I think the starting point really is to sit back. I'm assuming most of you are first time into employment generation, looking around. Have I got it right, Sunil?
Yes, sir. Most of them are youth looking at careers, looking
Okay.
at finishing college, and
Okay.
looking to start their careers. So I think that's
Okay.
the context.
Okay. Fine. So I think it's important to just sit back and see what are the factors which you all need to look at when you're getting into the status, particularly now, the way the things are in the uncertain environment. And actually, when I say uncertain environment, every uncertainty comes with its opportunities, and therefore it's important to understand that really, and not get bogged down by the uncertainties. So for a start, there is the current environment, which is the blue blurb, which is something which we need to understand what is happening today, what are the implications of that, what do you need to do to readjust to what is happening. The yellow blurb actually talks about trends, that is trends emerging in the future, something which you all need to be aware of and target yourself, realign yourself if required, and get ready for those opportunities. Because I think in the last couple of months, there are general consumer trends, industry trends that have been prevailing over a period of time. But I think in the last 4 or 5 months, things have had a bit of a shake-up, and we'll see what trends are emerging really. Then obviously you have that internal ambition of yours, what you want to be, what you think you are, what kind of roles you're seeking, where you see yourself, and that very often drives you to the kind of job seeking which you do. It very often also puts you under pressure because you have these expectations of yourself. So just be aware of all that and take account of your ambitions, what they are. And the green blurb is really the capabilities which are required because of the trends emerging, capabilities that are required because of the environment, and what are your own capabilities. So when you put them all together, you really come to the sweet spot, which is a small little violet blue blurb in the center. Uh, the fact is that while the environment is so large, the trends are so huge, your sweet spot is really the narrow little one. And how do you get there? How do you identify and what you do with it? Okay, so even before we go further down, I think it's important for you to sit back and really understand what does a work mean to you. And there are three defined tracks, for a better word, for want of a better word, what what roles jobs normally play in people's lives at a particular moment of time. One is it's a job that pays my bills. I will take a job because I have a financial commitment. I need to be sustaining myself. I need to look after my parents. I've got loans on my head. I've taken for my education. I got to pay my bills. I got to survive. And therefore, I need to pay my bills. I need a job. And a job is a job. The second part is to say a job that is career driven. And the difference between the first and the second really is career means that you're looking for a longish term growth. There is investment in you, growth, development. You rise in the ranks, you experience, and you move forward in the organization. The last one is a calling. Now, this is, I think, very fortunate few at this time of your life would be in a position where, you know, you understand what your calling is. And calling really is, how do I describe a calling? Calling is something which you passionately believe in. It is something which pulls you. It's like, very often you hear stories of very successful entrepreneurs, musicians, whatever. And they say, listen, from the age of 4, I was playing tabla because that was my calling. And you just become and you grow and you practice and you practice and you become a brilliant musician. As an example, there are multiple people who've had that calling. There are people with a spiritual background who have a calling. And they start very early in life and they graduate and move into that. But there are not very many who have that calling so early life. And I don't think I was one who had a calling very early in life. I also took the route which I mentioned, the three areas. I don't think I took the first route that a job is a job for paying bills. That was never my source of looking into a job. But career, certainly. Okay, and therefore you understand what the companies are all about, how they invest in people, what do they do, what their profile internally are, environment profile, HR policies, what are their cultures. All these start becoming important as you're going in. But the part which you need to remember is that it's okay to be in any one of them. There is no hard and fast thing or something to feel guilty that, listen, job is for me means paying bills. There's no guilt involved in that. And that is the message I want to give to each one of you. It is okay. There's a moment of your time, there's a moment in space which you're in. And for that, you need a particular working space. That is all right. And also, research has showed that it also depends very often at what stage of your life you are in, and you can go into all these. Typically, a calling happens much later in your life, where you've done the rounds of career, you've done the rounds of picking up your basics of business development, specializations, and you are now at a space, at a position in an organization where you can make a difference. And when you are in that space where you can make a difference, a calling becomes fantastic, because if your calling and your ability to deliver synergize, it's a fabulous space to be. In fact, a calling, I have an older son who is an entrepreneur, and he's actually taken his calling to not to be in an organizational space, but as an entrepreneurial space. Not even entrepreneurial. The first initial 8 or 10 years of his life were spent as a musician at a very high order in the country, top of the line in his electronic space, because that was his calling. And now he's become a social entrepreneur, and we'll talk a little bit more on that. So I have in my own home a person with a calling, and maybe I got my calling about 7, 8 years ago, and it was able to blossom because the group which you work with supported that. Okay, so let's see what is happening, some data points which will be interesting to each one of you as you are looking at it. So today, an average Indian changes about 5 jobs in his working lifetime versus 12 in the US. Now, when I began my working life, very initial 8, 10 or 12 years, I probably had changed 3 or 4 jobs. And I was researching to see, listen, am I a rolling stone? Or is this a normal thing which happened? And I went and did some research. At that time, an average American in his working lifespan did changed 8 jobs. I felt all right. But the interesting part is 8 jobs has now become 12 jobs. And therefore, the thing of moving is an accepted part of your career, because there was a time, there was a stigma when you're moving jobs. Today, very often questions are asked, if you are not moving, are you valued enough? Because if you're valued enough, you'll be pulled out. So it works either way. So there's no right or wrong. But the bottom line is job changing is an accepted part. 12 jobs in a working life of 40 years means you're talking about 3.5 years per job. If it is 5 jobs over 40 years, you're talking about 4.5, 5 jobs in a working span, 5 years in a job in a working span. And also then changes happen initially far rapidly as you're trying to understand what you want, where your careers are, and they start getting elongated as you settle into the cultural fit of an organization. Another interesting fact, which is useful for you to see as you're coming in, 82% of Indians who were interviewed by the Times of India said they will change a job within 1 year. And this was done last year, I think, this study, or 2 years back. And only 20% Indians are satisfied with their jobs. Now just step back as when you're entering your working life and evaluate these two statements. What it is telling you is that the urge to change jobs is universal. Okay, and therefore when you come in, You do not have to be in today's world in a state where, listen, I've taken a job. If I have to look around, what happens? Very often I've been meeting MBA students in the recruitment process and early careers. What they have been saying is that in the campuses there is so much pressure to take your job. You start with a dream job, and if that dream job you don't get, you take the next one, and then you have to sign up. You don't have the liberty of continuously saying no, no, no to an organization once you're recruited. So they would take a job and then use the next year or two to explore, understand, and spread the word and get into the kind of job that they want to do. There are the lucky few who will get their dream jobs. So the dream jobs are the one which is your first job, with your ideal job. It could be a banker, it could be consultancies, it could be the lead FMCGs like, let's say, Levers or P&G or a Cadbury, in those kind of, in that bracket of organizations. But not everybody can get into those organizations, and therefore they will all take what they have, which obviously isn't the bandwidth of the kind of jobs they're looking at, and then explore afterwards. And there's a big thing about job satisfaction, all that is there. But when I look at this 82% Indians saying, only 20% saying they're not satisfied in the job, it means 80% are not. Okay, and that shows a lot about organizations, what people's mindsets are about working and stuff like that. Another interesting point which you might want to hear, and this is, I've taken it out, there's a Yale University program on the science of happiness. And in that, they quote this study, which says that irrespective of what you earn, your expectation is 1.4 times that you feel your value is 40% more than what you've been offered. So if you're getting a job of 40,000, your expectation is that I should have got 56,000. It doesn't mean that if you started your career at 100,000 and 50,000 is a good place for you to live your life comfortably, you say, I'm all right. The person who began at $100,000 is saying, my expectation of myself is $250,000. So there's a dissatisfaction monetarily wherever you start. So bottom line is, at this moment, do not put pressure on yourself. Okay, how long, what jobs, salaries. Of course, you have to look within a bandwidth for yourself, but be aware that this is what market reality really is. Okay. The other thing which you need to keep in mind uh, within the framework of what is happening today is that the long-term India story holds. Nobody can prevent India from getting to the point of being a high growth economy. It may not happen 2 years from now, it may not happen 4 years from now, but you have a window of 15, 20 years where your youth population is becoming working and a consumption population. About 1.2 billion of the 1.4 billion are youth, which is a large proportion of people who are going to be your future. Not very many countries in the world can look at this kind of opportunity to work for themselves. Our legal system, for whatever its drawbacks, delays, is fair, and it is perceived to be fair in the international market, which is not so for many other economies where the legal systems are fraught with controls. We are a democracy, and that makes this country a welcome place for the industrialized zone, industry countries to invest because they're familiar and they believe in the freedom and they know there's a transparency. We are blessed with a very high intellectual capability. Today, you would have read maybe 20 or 25 of the leading organizations in the US are run by Indians. The value of Indian intellectual capability is so high internationally. I have put this word geopolitical environment, specifically what is happening in China right now. If we get our policies right and done, there is a large opportunity waiting at this moment for capital to move from there into this country. And once initial movement happens, it just builds cumulatively. And Indians, fortunately, have a very high entrepreneurial mindset. And each one of you should not limit yourself only to organizations. Look at entrepreneurship not only as an excitement for yourself, but your job creators. And that, I think, is the calling need of the day. So, in a summary, irrespective of what's happening right now, believe me, the future is very, very bright for India, and particularly the youth, because who's entering the working space now, you are the ones who are going to be benefiting from the dividend going forward. Okay. So, when I talk about the current environment, what are we saying? You are aware, these are hard facts. Quarter 4 has been miserable. Our GDP has declined. The forecast for the first Jan to April to June is showing a 40% decline in GDP. Unemployment, which is running around 7%, shot up to 26%, highly worrying. Estimates are that 53% of businesses are severely impacted. Share market tanked by 30%. None of you may be currently investing in the share market, but this is a barometer to see what the population thinks about what is happening in the environment. So very bleak. We have been downgraded by Moody's, though we are still in investment grade. So all this was coming across. Yet, if you step back, for the whole year going forward, the estimation is that the economy will decline by 4 to 6%, which really means if 40% has happened in Q1, probably second half onwards, growth will start coming in. There are already signs of revival of the economy, which is happening. Unemployment, which had tanked down to 26 odd percent, is now running around 12 to 13%, which means half the people have come back into the working space, and therefore again reflecting that the economy is coming back gradually. The government policies have moved us from lockdowns into economic opening up. So therefore, we are heading in that direction. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is smooth going forward. There will be hiccups, but that is part and parcel of life. This is a kind of a space which no living human being in this world today, I'm not saying India, has experienced. It's new for everybody. The share market has gone up to by 20%. Again, it's telling us there is a confidence in the economy. The index, which was BSE running at 42,000 before the lockdown, dropped to 27 or 28,000, if I'm not mistaken, and is now running at 37,000. So about close to 5-7% below the highs of pre-lockdown. So therefore, again, there are bright spots in the environment which you need to take cognizance of at this moment of time. Okay. The other part you need to be aware, Team Least did a survey. Unfortunately, only 18% of the companies surveyed said they will hire in the first half of 2021. Okay. And this is largely driven by the small and medium scale industries. If you have been reading all the packaging economic opening that has been done and where the investments are, the significant financial pressures have been in the medium and small scale sectors, but that is a sector which employs the most people, and a lot of people are looking for jobs, and that is where the crunch is really. But I think the trick for each one of you is not to get bogged down by 82% are not looking to employ, but look at those 18% companies who are in the space for employment, go after them, see where they are, what you can do, how you can reach out to them. Again, the positive side, 18% are saying they will employ. The same number was 11% a month ago. So within a month, another 7% are saying they're going to go back into employment. Look at Amazon. In the last 3 months, they have hired 70,000 people, contractual laborers, because of the increased demand. So there are these pockets which I think you people need to really go after, and that is where the action is. And the hiring is much higher in your metros, tier 1 cities. So there is activity which is starting to happen. It is therefore start looking at those areas where opportunities exist, identify them, go after them, look for the green shoots and not the overall red scape which is being done. It is similar to the way COVID would be that, listen, you can make a whole metro red, or you can release the entire thing, only leave the red in areas which are sharply under problem, open up the rest to green. So we are looking, you need to look for the green and not get locked up. Okay, the environment is in that state. So if I summarize right now, the message to everybody is tough times right now, but there are enough and more opportunities which are starting to show up. Look at those and not at where the problem was. Okay, so let's try and spend a little bit time on what is happening in different sectors. I know this is very broad based, okay, but within today's situation, the way things are, there are a couple of sectors which are really booming. Pharma and healthcare is obviously the biggest one. India, as you know, is the world's vaccine manufacturer. And when the vaccine comes out, it could be next couple of months, India would be the best place to become the producer for the world in terms of vaccines. It means employment of a different nature. It could be operations, it could be supply chains, it could be sales. Whole lot of opportunities in this entire space are going to be opening up in the pharma sector. Wellness again, and wellness is, it's interesting that wellness is not an industry. It could be yoga, it could be whatever. It's all about how do I make myself better for myself. It's yoga, it could be diet, it could be whatever. And there's a space which is there and space which needs to be looked at, which is open right now. Educational services, especially online, and this fact that we are talking online right now is a demonstration of the impact of online, the way things have really opened up. Exactly a year ago, this would have been unthinkable to have online. I remember before I retired, we would have our own discussions. Should we go into video conferencing? Should we install high-end video conferencing facilities so we don't need to travel? But everybody would say, nothing beats physical eyeball to eyeball connect. Those assumptions are vanished. Because whether you like it or not, it is online and people are finding great opportunities in online. And honestly, I've just finished a intensive program online and I found it so much better for the sheer factor that I'm not traveling 3 hours up and down to get into those workshops. My time is flexible. I learn at a pace, and interaction is still pretty as high because you're visually talking to everybody in small groups. So it is mindsets which are creating the problems. And you have the likes of Byju's who began earlier but have become huge successes in the virtual space. Agriculture and agrochemicals is big, and especially the amount of money the government is now put back into the rural economy. You find leading FMCGs, even the chairman's speech about 2 weeks back about on Unilever, that the demand is coming up in the rural sector because agri income is starting to move. The crop level is much higher because of bountiful rains, and therefore that's where the growth is starting to come. FMCG is a great place. It's a stable place because daily needs you can never run out of, whether it's toothpaste, soap, food areas. They are part and parcel of your thing. IT, of course, I'm not going to talk too much, and of course, e-commerce, which is linked to special line. But e-commerce in terms like the Zoom, e-commerce like Amazon, e-commerce like Flipkart, okay, the food delivery systems, they are doubling up. I have a friend who's sitting in Hong Kong in the food delivery space. There's again a lockdown, a third or fourth lockdown, that's Hong Kong, and they're sitting together. They were sitting together yesterday to say their demand estimation is to double in because of what has happened. How are they going to cope? You suddenly feel you're not in a world where there's shortage of employment. Okay. Similarly, like I mentioned, Amazon recruiting 70,000 people. It doesn't talk about employment being an issue. So there are pockets which you need to look where things are bright. Okay, sectors obviously under pressure are not linked to where there is human interaction of intensity. Retail, because even till today, I think the malls are just about gradually opening up. There's social distancing and X number of people can only enter. You have seen photographs in US and UK where the limited 50 people at a moment of time can go out into the stores. Markings are there, you stand here, you stand there. There are friends in Bangalore who live in complexes They are not allowed to go down to the store inside their own building. They call, they give a list of what they need. The product is made ready. The phone call goes back, please pick it up. So your browsing in store has dropped. Your impulse buying has dropped because you're not able to touch and feel the product. Okay, and therefore somewhere I'm sure in the retail, the electronic space, you will start seeing retail stores where you can see the products and start picking up from there, and really a virtual feel of a store. Travel and tourism has crashed, and very obviously because nobody wants to be in a space where they are interacting with people and their touch and feel is there, and there's a problem. Aviation has collapsed. Even till now, I don't think international flights are starting for the next couple of months. And therefore, there's a serious problem. Businesses are turning turtle. You would have read a couple of, maybe a month and a half, the largest, one of the largest private airlines, Virgin in Australia, was going bankrupt. They've been bailed out. That's a different matter. All things like event management, live performances, which were wonderful, your music concerts and your conferences, marriages, all that has come into collapse because of social distancing norm requirements. And especially for youth in your age groups, where live performances, music, and all was a part and parcel of your life, will take a backseat. But Book My Show has taken over. Zoom has taken over, where you come together and have online kind of shows that are happening. And if you really ask me, I have never seen so many messages, NCPA coming online with shows, the world's best jazz festivals coming online. This Royal Albert had thrown open their in London to to online performances. If you ask me, it is bounty right now, the kind of exposure without cost that can come to each one of us. It is amazing what really is a possibility right now. Okay, I'd mentioned a little bit of social entrepreneurship. I think it's interesting to note that today's youth is very, very driven by doing the right. In fact, here is the report which says, done by Deloitte. 86% of surveyed millennials said business should be measured not just by financial performance, but doing the right thing when it comes to important social issues. This wasn't the case a couple of years back. Couple of years back, there were a few groups, maybe like the Tatas, who had an inherent value of doing the right thing, ethically, social work. Here, the youth is now saying we will go and positively work with organizations who do right. I'm talking about 2 or 3 years back, there was a survey done where a lot of people said they would go to McDonald's because they were using recycled paper in their serving plates and stuff. So there's a consciousness which is coming in. And therefore, how do you monetize that? Okay. And it is not a short-term thing, but there is a genuine belief that this is the way the world has to move. There is so much discussion happening about capitalism going off. There's such a divide between the haves and the have-nots. People are realizing if the world has to survive, the have-nots have to jump from the position where they are and come into a semblance of have. And that can come with people in the hearts in the right places. And I gave an example of my son where he's become a social entrepreneur. And those 2, 3 lines at the bottom are his inputs to me that if you want to be an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, I think the critical things are identify a need gap. And I'm adding it couldn't be a need gap even just now, but it is filling a long-term need. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Feel strongly for the causes. And because especially today, when you're in tough times, if you don't believe in what you're doing, it'll be very difficult to sail through. So let's say if you're into making masks and you're doing it as an economic opportunity, one problem of something going wrong and you'll want to wind up. But if you're doing it because you believe it is right for the community, it will tide through. Or like you have the vaccine company based in Pune, Punawalas, who are going to produce that thing with the Oxford vaccine. They have made a statement they want to produce the vaccine below 1,000 rupees because their job today is not profiteering. The job today is to support life. Now, that is the kind of vision that makes a difference and helps you sustain when things are not in the right frame. Times are tough. Collaborate, work together, make things work. There are people in the business, you think they are competitors, but they're all coming together like this Healthify talking to milk deliverers, to saying how can we work together. You have organizations like FMCG who are now working with people like food deliveries, working together for food deliveries. So there's a lot of things available where rethinking of your basic assumptions are being questioned, and how do you rework in life. The big one for the country is, I have consciously not used below the poverty line, the pyramid, it is the lower end. Look at the numbers. 57% of consumption happens in rural India. 1.2 billion people, which almost 60-65% are in that age bracket. And we keep talking about the demographic dividend. That is where the dividend is. And therefore, what can each one of you do to bring livelihood to them? And I'll share some examples. In the last 3 months, 3 crore migrants have gone back to their villages and their small towns, and their estimates are 30% won't come back, which means another 1 crore people are going to be added to the places. They need income generation, they need economic activity. Okay, and it's not only the government which is going to make a difference to this to happen, it's a lot of us who have to make it happen. And there is an economic benefit. It is how do you decongest cities. The more and more you urbanize, our system is cracking on its seams. Emotional well-being, we are uprooting people from rural to come into urban for financial living, but it is causing heartaches to them. We had done a study with TIS and Tata Coffee, and we were looking at how can we help the tribals. And they had capabilities and all that. But one big factor which came was they do not want to leave their homes, the security and the safety and the love of their homes. So therefore, our challenge was how do we bring business to them rather than bring them to business. I think that shift needs to happen. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit of Grameen Danon, Bangladesh. Not that there are no Indian examples. Startup Group is doing fantastic work in the rural areas. Levers is doing fabulous work with their Shaktimans and all. But there's a fascinating story. Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner, setter of Grameen Bank, tied up with Danone. Danone is the world's largest fresh dairy producing company, which they used to sell in India. I haven't seen them recently with their yogurts. What they did was they tied up with people in the rural space, in the smaller towns, ladies who became brand ambassadors. Because they became brand ambassadors, it brought the product closer to the marketplace. Because they were brand ambassadors willing to sell to communities close to them, credibility was very high because the people around knew this person and they were willing to invest. Because they were local, banks were able to give funds to them. And the source of the dairy for the production came from communities close by. And therefore it became a closed loop. The supplier close by, product consumption close by, seller close by, financing close by. And because you're dealing with a product which requires short shelf life, typically yogurts don't have a life more than 7 days. Because they were able to create this, they were able to provide nutritional yogurt, vitamin, reinforced product into these marketplaces, which would never have been able to go because by the time you produce it in Dhaka and take it to interiors, you lost 2-3 days of your movement. So there are these kind of opportunities which you all need to explore. It is not that somebody will explore and you will get into it. I'm urging each one of you to look, keep your eyes and ears open and see where things can make a difference. Where can you make a difference? Give you some examples of social entrepreneurship ideas from India. Novel India, I think there's a guy, Shiv Shankar in IIM, Calcutta, graduate. He has set up, after seeing the condition of garbage clearance and all in Kerala and maybe even Bangalore, we would have made a visit, where what he's done is he set up a decentralized model of waste management where any building block with 100 apartment kinds can do a subscription model, 180 rupees per month. And it is Novel's responsibility to collect the garbage, the waste. segregate it, compost it, and as a membership, whatever proceeds, revenue come from the sale of the compost gets plowed back into the community. So it's again a win-win. They clear up, you get money back from what you're doing, and you're doing good and not dependent upon large infrastructural investments from the government to clear it and all those issues. So here's a straight example of an entrepreneurship. An MIT student within this COVID periods has developed a model for tracking medical supplies and efficient distribution. Okay, critical medical supplies, high speed, low inventories because you're monitoring, and it is becoming a big thing which is being developed. I don't know how many of you heard of Tennessee Farms, a small venture out of Bangalore. It is farm to home, which is becoming more regular now, but this is a company set up by an entrepreneur where their job is they're not farmers themselves, but they're sourcing direct from farm, cutting the middleman, delivering direct to home. Okay, so therefore, what is happening is the farmer gets better income, the consumer gets fresh product, the consumer get at a price marginally lower than what they would get in the marketplace, and the middleman is the one where the pressure is, the farmer is benefit, and you're getting it right at your doorstep. So the idea to give these three examples is to again show to you when we talk about social entrepreneurship, friends, there is so much out there for us to be able to do. It is for us to go out and look. Okay, so now let's go and see what are the skills required going. If you go back to the yellow blur, the green blur, green capability blur, okay, obviously the world has changed. 9 to 5 doesn't exist. Okay, you have to now completely be prepared if you're going to be working like this. People are working harder today than they were working many years earlier on. Let me give you an example of flexibility and adaptability. The friend of ours who run a very successful tourism business. Businesses are shut because of where it is. Now, they could always keep saying, I'm a tourism person. What do I do? Boom, bum, cry, funds, salaries. What do I do? What have they done? They said, okay, our ability is in terms of corporate contact, because this kind of tourism is meant for corporates. If I have connect in the corporate, how can I leverage that? And they've moved into sanitization products for corporate. So therefore, they've taken their skill, okay, and they have been able to switch over. Let's move. There's another person who's from the tourism, applied to one of the people I know, was in the tourism business. And she has pivoted across to say, I will come into the NGO sector. And the skills she brings are not the tourism, but the fact that customer management, vendor management, process driven, ability to hold pressures. If you're in the tourism business, directly handling customers, consumers who are irrational, demanding, if you can handle that pressure, what an amazing capability you bring. And therefore, it's important to address what capabilities you have and not the kind of job you're doing, and then see where the fit happens and take it forward. Let's talk about the tech savvy. Obviously, is a manna for each one of you because you are the youth who are into technology. And as the older generation finds it more and more difficult to handle so much of technologies, the youth who are going to be taking over throws up massive opportunities to you. Ingenuity of dreaming up products. I'm going to give you an example of the Taj Group, the hotels. Now, hotels are shut, just for starting to open. So what have they done finally? About a month back, they began a home delivery system of food. So there are people, everybody is locked down and eating home food and they need to get out and urge. So they said, okay, we'll bring it to your house. They've gone one step further now and they said, listen, you're used to getting together. You can't get together. We will provide you, suppose you have a party for 10 people. We will send the same menu to all the 10 houses you define. You get onto the Zoom platform or whatever electronic platform. We will provide you the entertainment, the music, so that you feel that you are in a space which is entertaining and the food is similarly being shared by everybody. So you relive a physical experience in a virtual space. Now, this is all about ingenuity and dreaming of new places. what can you think? And obviously, the data trends is important when you're looking at it. Okay, digital, we've talked about. So collaborative leadership is becoming, of even working, not even leadership, maybe at the entry level leadership is not the right word. Because earlier on, maybe 20 years back, command and control was the way of looking at things. There's a boss, there's a hierarchy. That moved to collaboration where you deal with technology capabilities, media capabilities. The youth are so much more vibrant. But that same capability is now switching into the virtual space where physical contact is lost. And therefore, building trust. What do you do as an employee to build that trust in your supervisors, in your managers? Because if they don't trust you in a virtual space, there's a problem. Okay. And therefore, you need to introspect what actions. It is very easy to say, I'm at home, nobody will know what I'm doing. But that's the last thing which you need to look upon. You've got to be saying, this is a virtual world, nobody can see what I'm doing. How do I ensure what I do become visible? And I am the product of that. It is almost like saying, people used to ask, what does ethics mean, Sanjeev? And ethics is something which you do when nobody is looking. It's very easy to be straight, good when you're in a public forum. But if when no one is looking and you're doing some things in a particular way, in a right way, that is becomes what ethics is. Emotional intelligence, capability we're talking about. Copability is this entire thing about how do you manage pressure? How do you cope with the environment? Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more later on, but this is a skill which you all need to be picking up. Communication, empathy, time management, all linked to the space you're in virtual spaces. You're reading so much more and more about people getting into depressed spaces, okay? Uh, Asking you, communicate, become sensitive to people, become sensitive to signals, what are people going through, and reach out in the organizations wherever you're working. And of course, continuous learning. Okay, there's an interesting factor which has been researched, which says 35% of the skills which you deem essential today will be changed in the next 5 years. Believe me, in the last 5 years, I have seen AI coming in, I have seen Zoom coming in, I've seen digital world coming in. So much, I honestly feel like a dinosaur at times. Okay, and the pace is increasing, and what you are able to keep pace with is going to determine how you succeed in the future. So the bottom line is, take stock of yourself. This is what the market is going to be demanding, my friends. How prepared are you when you're getting into that space? Are you in the front end? Are you behind? If you're behind, you need to take action to move forward. You define what space you want to be. You define what you want to do. We've talked about flexibility, adapt. We won't take time over there. Something which is important to you. 40% of professionals who were researched said they will spend a lot more time preparing for interviews in the near future. Because the demands are going to be sharper, job opportunities are going to be lesser, you have to stand out. You can't go unprepared for interviews, which means understand the company, understand what you bring to the organizations, and therefore you handle it better. Speed to pivot, we'll talk a little bit. I'll use a couple of examples. And of course, continuous learning, which I'm not going to spend too much time because it's okay. Here are two examples of speed, flexibility. I'll take Blessed By, which is my son's organization. They are a social venture. When this began, within I think 3 or 4 weeks of lockdowns happening, they had moved and were able to identify suppliers and stuff like that for masks, and began going to corporates within a week's time, 3 weeks time. Let's look at the Art of Living Foundation. Within, I think 23rd March was the first lockdown. Within 2 or 3 days, they had begun morning, evening meditations. They had begun, for the first time in the history of art, and online programs are happening, all going to corporates, locals. Okay, interviews happening with people, talking to people. So the entire organization has pivoted from physical programming, connecting, to online movement. And that is the speed which is going to be required today. The world is changing so fast. So are you in that space or willing to change? Okay, emotional intelligence is all about having the forbearance, ability to hold on, not get worked up. Okay, manage what's happening around you. I think this word of refrigerate your ego is going to be so important. Very often what happens is in your job market, you're comparing notes. He got that, she got that, why didn't I get that? Go back to the first slide, which I said, what is your role for a job? It is to pay a bill. Is it a career or is it a calling? And there is no harm saying it is a job market to make money, which is fine. But therefore, get over this ego, who is better, where I'm. What is important to you is important. It is not what is important to somebody else, which is important. Do not silo yourself, okay, which means I will go to FMCG. Fabulous. If you get FMCG, get it. But if you don't, it's all right. Nothing wrong. Like I said, get in. 80% of the people in the market today are looking at changing jobs in the next 1 year. It's all right. 20% of the people are saying, I'm happy in my job. Be one of them. It's all right. Get your job, get into the workspace. Don't get frustrated. Occupy your mind. Get on with it. Build multiple skills for yourself. When I was in young days in the sales head, my boss told me, Sanjeev, you're a sales guy. Build a second capability. Okay, I went on, it did into strategy and stuff like that. But today you have access to the world on your net. Multi-skill yourself. Okay. If you're a sales guy, look at training. Okay. Look at in-store management. Look at different ways where you can offer yourself to an organization and add value. It's all about adding value to an organization by being able to add value to yourself. And that is a big one. Okay. Rapidly through trends. Sunil, I'm running a little bit short on time. Are you okay? 5-6 minutes additional?
I think 5 minutes, sir. After that, we'd like to take questions.
Okay, fine. So trends, work from home is a big one, but I think bigger opportunities for women, because for them it is, they already work at home and this suddenly throws a plethora of opportunities available to them. Wellness we've talked about. This entire thing of touchless and home basis. Touchless means no physical contact, and therefore home deliveries, broadband. How do you play in that? Dietitians is becoming big, and I'm calling it because this is what the world is talking about. Not only because you're eating at home, people are not being active. What do you eat? But there's a social trend of looking good, feeling good. Families are working, couples are working. They want to offload interior designing. How do you capture these kind of things? Anything which is, look at the space which is, the trend is couples working. The trend is stay at home. What are the issues they would be facing? You need to be in that space and see where you can add value to them. Career counseling is becoming big with all the issues we've talked about. Can you imagine US has 2.6 million counselors per 1 million people in the marketplace. India has 500. And therefore, people with some experience becoming guides in the future can be areas to look at. Platform-based engagement is big, is interesting because people are moving away from 9 to 5 and becoming project-based. Platforms are being formed. You log in over there, do a 2-3 month project, finish it, move on. And that is how income is getting generated. And you do what you want at your pace, at your happiness. Again, all these IT skills are very fascinating. Drone operations are becoming larger, not only for events. It is for security. It is for understanding the marketplace. We are in our company, we're evaluating how can we do spraying of pesticides. So there are, all I'm trying to get through this is look. There is so much which is available to you in the marketplace to explore away from the regular ones. Climate change, energy, massive. Okay, 50 lakh jobs have got created in 1 year globally, of which 5 lakhs were in India. Infrastructure is going to boom when the investments come. I think in the budget they had said 1,50,000 crores are being allocated in the 5-year in the plan for infrastructure. How do you leverage that? What do you do? Agriculture supply chain. We talk about the boom in agriculture. Supply chains are going to be fabulously required. Cold chains are going to be required. How do you get farm produce into to home without loss? 40% of your produce is lost en route. So guys, there is gold out there, is the basic feedback to each one of you. Get ready for it. Okay. And at the end of it, it's the mind. You got to stay in the positive state of mind. You cannot say things are not happening. It will be right because the world is right. and you have all the capability to make things happen. Stay in a state of calmness, and nothing like being to meditate state and that, because if your mind is hassled, your positive state is going to go into a toss. If your mind is not calm, you're going to lose control of your life. And I think the big one is look where you have control. You can always keep saying the world job market is wrong. I have shown you enough and more opportunities where the market is there. I have tried to put a mirror to you what capabilities you need to bring. Understand what capabilities you have, what you lack, what you need to build. Focus on that. But that is what is going to make you a product ready for the marketplace. So therefore, if I summarize the last point, if you look on the left-hand side, is the way we began. What I'm saying, shift your mindset. Your yellow space becomes enlarged, which is the market trends. Scope the market trends. Look at the green blurb, significantly larger. That is where the capabilities are. Look on the capabilities. What do you need to do? What does the world, what does the market need? What am I doing? Hold your ambition down. Hold your ego down. Suppress it. It is irrelevant right now. So bottom line is, if you do this, the thing is increase your sweet spot. And that is what you guys have to do at this moment of time. It is environment is good, environment is bad, it is in your mind, is the bottom line to this. Okay, thanks and wish you all the very best. Sunil, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, thank you for showing us the gold. I think you really hit the nail on the head saying opportunities are aplenty. It's about the attitude. It's about going behind them and cutting it down to be able to find your sweet spot. I think very well said. Thanks again. We have a spate of questions which I would take with you. We have one from Radhika, and Radhika asks you, due to the current situation, there's a huge impact on the mental health of people. How, according to you, should the current generation cope with this?
I thought I've answered quite a bit speaking about the mind state and all that. See, couple of things. So let's start different buckets. There are a lot of people who are alone. Okay? I think the biggest vulnerabilities are over there. There are bachelors, single people working, and they're all alone because their roommates have flown back, gone home. They are vulnerable. They have had enough cases of high-end suicide, which are being talked about. As friends, colleagues, stay in touch. Okay, all I advise my friends in the art of living who are now thinking is speak at least every week, call up. Have more than one activity on your hand where you can occupy your time. This is a time, where there's such a large opportunity. If you have a computer, you have an internet, learn new things, keep your mind active. Okay, in the last 2-3 months, I have not learned, but I've spent time trying to learn Kannada. I've tried to do music. I've gone into cooking. I've gone into multiple things. You just got to keep it.
Fabulous.
Put off stuff there. Keep busy. Don't think of what is the issue. Think of how can you grow. And that is the only way your mental state can be handled. And stay in touch. Stay in touch, stay in touch, stay in touch, stay in touch. Grow your mind, occupy your mind, occupy your mind, occupy your mind.
Okay. The next one is from Vinay. Vinay asks you, does employment or lack of jobs due to knowing more? So he asks you a question whether knowing more and more knowledge, does it lead to fewer jobs and fewer opportunities?
So knowing more will lead to lesser jobs because you are demanding specializations. The world is not saying you know more. You are telling yourself you know more. Okay, so be clear about that. And again, come back and say, what does the job mean to you? What do you want to do? I gave you this example of this girl from tourism who's saying, I'm moving out of tourism, I'm getting my skills, I will take it to an NGO sector. Are you ready to pivot? So it's what do you do to yourself?
Right. The next question is from Parik, and Parik asks, what's your opinion about businesses that would survive post the pandemic and flourish as well?
We spent a lot of time talking about the trends. I think you have to revisit that. Again, please stay back, look into the future and see what trends are you seeing. follow your gut after that. Okay, trends of wellness, trends of hygiene, trends of physical fitness, trends of IT. Okay, home support. There's so many. It's your ability to absorb and look. At this moment, everything you hear, read, listen, mull it over, observe, observe, observe.
This comes from a good friend and a great well-wisher, Major General Raj Mehta, asks you, shouldn't microfinancing be given a push during the COVID times?
So true. The minute I'm saying the rural opportunity, below that lower level pyramid, this is where microfinance fits in, and that is why I gave the example of Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Dana. That is where it is, and which is why all these NBFCs. It is time for them. This banking sector, NBFC, is where it's going to flourish. Places like Ujjivan and all that who are taking money to all these places. That is where it's going to happen. So it is a place for microfinancing, yes. And when microfinances come, people have to be ready to work with the money and make things happen.
Okay. The next one is from Billu, and Billu asks, what is your message to the employable youth in rural areas?
That's what the biggest thing happening is. The biggest opportunity is there below. I told you 1.2 billion youth are sitting over there. Okay, and that's where the entire action is. Believe me, I think it's important. It is our ability to monetize the rural, which is going to be survival not for individual but for the country. And I seriously believe in that. I'm not saying Gandhi model or whatever. Ability to decongest urban, ability to bring resources, financial earning close to where you are is where survival is. And building economic models is where survival is.
Sure. The next one is a very interesting one. How to get corporates provide the right direction to institutions and to youth to get them through workplace preparation seamlessly during their academic studies itself.
Well, this is an example of what you're doing right now. More of such interactions, internships. That's all. There are no shortcuts in all this. I think it's more important for the institutions to become relevant to the organizations also and bring ideas of projects which they can do and support them. That's actually there are 10 odd premier institutes where people run to. There are a whole load of others. Those organizations, institutes need to see in their local areas what difference can they make to the organization through the project work they do.
Tapan, I think we'll take this as a last question, sir. Tapan asks you, what are your views on real estate and the housing sector to be specific? And how will it grow, or will it stay a bit more stagnant considering the current times?
I don't have a crystal ball, but if I see the state of economy, I think it'll take time for it to settle down. Okay, not only from demonetization time moving downwards because all transactions are getting overboard. Because of the financial status right now, requirement of resources, labor has moved back, ability to construct. There are so many apartments lying open right now, unoccupied, inventory is short. But in the same places, very high-end real estate apartment shortage. Very low end, if what government is saying they need to construct, have locations close to workspaces, build spaces for people so they don't live in chamaris and live in slums. If that really happens, these two ends are going to move up.
Okay. I think I have a very philosophical last question for you. It comes from Shubham Sharma, and he asks you, we all know that India is a developing country, and we are, as people, as Indians, are thirsty about money. How can we ignore this and get on with life?
No, nobody is saying ignore money. And I think we have to stop believing in the fact that money is bad. Okay,
That's
we have
right.
to move away from that. Money is a generator of opportunity. Please believe that. Because if there's no money rotation, okay, the economy will come to a stop. So money is not a bad word. Okay, money becomes a bad word if you're into profiteering. Money becomes a bad word if you're taking advantage of it. If you're using it to plow back, if you're giving it to support communities, if you're giving it to create businesses, money is fabulous.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful session. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for giving that wonderful analysis about opportunities and careers. And we really appreciate your time and speaking to the youth, which I think is going to be charged with many, many more ideas after what they've heard from you. Thanks again, and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.